to another episode of the Riverside City College Business and Law Show, where we engage educators, leaders, and community members who are making a serious impact on our campus. My name is Anjene Wilcoxson, and today we'll be discussing the powerful work being done to support Hispanic Serving Institutions, especially ours, and the success of our Latinx students. Recently, several of my colleagues and I had the privilege of attending the Escala conference, which focused on elevating outcomes of Latinx students. Today we'll focus what we learned and how these insights can be applied here at our institution. So while 3 of us were able to go, 1 was not, because he got married. Yeah! He has such knowledge and a passion for this that we wanted him to be here. So I want to welcome you all. Thank you, Eddie. Thank you, Virginia. Thank you, Ben, for being here. Let's start with you introducing yourselves. And if you don't mind, let's start with you, Eddie. Just introduce yourself for us.
I'm Eddie Perez, a faculty chair here for behavioral sciences. I teach sociology and criminology classes here on campus. I hang out in La Casa, the engagement center, help Ben out with Title V, and just put myself where I need to be, where I needed.
That's right. That's right. Good.
I'm Virginia White. I'm faculty in the biology department. I'm a botanist by training, and I run 2 large grants here at the college that support Latinx students.
2 very large grants. Yes. Ben.
My name is Ben. I am the program manager for our Title V HSI grant. I am a former student leader, and so I've had passion since I was a student on campus, and I worked my way up to this management role where I now run a $3 million grant as well. So happy to be doing the work as well.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Let's dive into the Escala conference. For those of us who attended, it was packed with powerful sessions. Virginia, what was one key takeaway from the conference that really resonated with you?
So this is actually my 4th Escala training, and they all have really interesting outcomes. And each time I come out feeling just motivated, I think that's the biggest key. Working with this particular team, there were 14 of us, 13, 14 of us who were at the conference, and drawing on the energy and the excitement and the enthusiasm of the other team members was huge. You realize that you're not working alone. Sometimes when we're working on projects, you feel like you're working alone. But with this, we were planning out what the college was going to do. So we were working across the college in different areas. And that motivation, that energy, brings you back to campus excited to do the work and excited to make big change.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Eddie, what about you? What stood out to you at Escala, and what strategies do you plan to bring back and use at our college?
Well, like Virginia, this is my 4th training, so I think me and Virginia have done all the trainings together. So, and for me, it's like, I'm just really happy to be a part of this group, because we've been working on this work for a long time. Ben and I and Pati, we started kind of, coming at the institution when we first initiated our Latinx association.
Is that right?
Yeah, so we've always been involved and engaged in what we can do here on campus. So it's really nice to know now that we're actually investing into our faculty, our classified professionals, and even our administrators, that went through the training with us this last time around. So just, one of the big takeaways for me is like, okay, now we got other people on campus, across the campus, who are also participating in the work, right? And it's closer to getting it institutionalized, because it is such a big investment,
yes.
Right? And so the things that I plan on doing, the work that I plan on doing myself, is just to keep having conversations, keep participating in trainings, keep advocating for our students, changing the language in our strategic plan, changing the language on our webpage, and just our job descriptions. That's where we need to really, focus the work, what we can do here, and in my own circles, but with other people too, and helping them to kind of understand that work is important.
I love it.
Right?
Thank you, Eddie. Thank you. All right, Ben, although you didn't attend the conference, I know you're passionate about HSIs. Based on what you've heard from our colleagues, what are your thoughts on how these insights align with your experience working with our Latinx students?
Well, I think it's powerful. I actually worked in La Casa, the Latino Student Engagement Center, for a little over 5 years. And our students struggle, but it's powerful to know, now that I'm involved in the work, that there's this professional development this work that's happening in the background, the things that our students don't see, and so it's absolutely necessary. And we've needed, it's like we've needed to do this a while back now, but I'm glad that we're here in this moment. We have a really great opportunity with our grants that we have, and it's powerful to see that this is happening for our students. So absolutely.
That's beautiful. Awesome. All right, now let's focus on the broader role of Hispanic Serving Institutions. We know that HSIs play a critical and crucial role in supporting Latinx students. Ben, given your knowledge, what do you believe is the most important function of HSIs, like us, RCC, and why are they essential for the educational landscape?
So HSIs, and there's 600 of them designated across the nation, including Puerto Rico. There's a growing need to serve students of color because that's the biggest population of students. That's the largest growing student population, and all HSIs are severely underfunded. So it's absolutely powerful that we have a grant. We have three grants, right, that are serving our institution, because that's what institutions need across the nation is our funding opportunities like this. It's the largest growing demographic across the nation, and it's important that we receive these funds to be able to do the programming and the projects that we to increase student success. That's what it comes down to.
That's right, student success. That's beautiful. All right, Virginia, how did the Escala conference deepen your understanding of the challenges and opportunities HSIs like ourselves face?
One of the things that caught my attention, and I've heard it before, but it still caught my attention when we were there, is that aside from UC Merced, all HSIs started as primarily white institutions.
Did they really?
Yes. And over time have become HSIs, Hispanic Serving Institutions. And so it's an identity that most of these schools don't know how to own yet when they first get that designation. We've been an HSI here at RCC for a long time, but that's on paper, not in practice, not in the day-to-day activities that we do. And so I think one of the things that came out of the conference for me and the work that we're all involved doing is what does it mean here at this institution to be an HSI? What does it mean to serve our Latinx students differently than other HSIs, right? Our particular local population. So we started as an institution that didn't serve Hispanic students. And so now how do we change our mission? How do we change our strategic plan? How do we infuse every part of the college with that mission in mind?
Wow, that's powerful. It gives us a lot to think about.
Yes.
How are we doing that? How must we do that?
Yes. I think it's been in progress for a while, but now it's catching fire a bit on campus, right? There's more and more of us who are involved in that work and bringing it to the forefront.
Understand. Thank you. All right, Eddie, what role do you see faculty playing in ensuring that RCC meet the needs of our Latinx students, and how can faculty be more engaged in this mission?
Well, faculty are obviously very important because faculty are the ones who spend most time with the students. I mean, the number of hours the students spend here on campus, the time is spent with faculty, right? So it is really important that we're doing the work in our classrooms, that we're, constantly evaluating and critically looking at our pedagogical practices, how we evaluate our students, how we're assessing. So that work is extremely important. Now, I think the bigger problem or the bigger question is how do we get faculty on board? Because we have a good amount of faculty who are doing the work, who are working on bettering their practices and working on professional development and things of that nature. But there's also a good chunk of faculty who aren't doing that, and that's the challenge. How do we get them to, one, get on board, two, do the work, to learn about the work, to invest in their own professional development and their understanding of cultural competency. I mean, that's the big lift, right? So that's the big lift. But we do play a huge and a very important role in making this transition and actually doing that work, and just training others on campus as well. Working with others.
That's good. Thank you, Eddie. We've talked about the conference insights, but let's get practical. Eddie, how do you plan to apply what you learned at Escala to the role here at RCC?
Well, I think we've done facilitator training learning in the classroom, how our students learn, different, ways of learning for our Latino students in particular and that sort of thing. I think for me, the goal is to continue to work on my own pedagogical practices, one, but I'm also in those spaces where we're looking at, job descriptions, we're looking at, language on strategic planning and that sort of thing. So now it's really working with others and ensuring that my role as a chair, that I'm voicing those concerns, that we're making those changes where I can, that I'm messaging back to my faculty and from my chair's department meetings, that I'm taking that message back to my other groups and just disseminating that work, right? And so I think for me, the hands-on is do the work.
You're right.
Do it. It's like we've got to do the stuff.
You're right, Eddie. That is the key, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm fortunate in our area. Everyone's so passionate about it. Although it's not sanctioned, we evaluate each other on our engagement with our students of color, and we talk about that. And that's kind of against the contract right now. We can't actually measure or evaluate on that. But as a department, we kind of do that already, and it's really helping. So I look forward to the day when everyone on campus is doing that. Because it's nothing to be afraid of. We're just trying to improve ourselves and our interaction with our students, right?
Yeah, and that's one of the things that we're doing. Like in our IOIs, we're not looking at their equity data per se, but we're asking them, have you looked at your equity data?
There you go.
Have you looked at that? We can have conversations. It's not a part of the process. It's not something that they're gonna, we're gonna ding somebody on or anything. But that's a good time to have a conversation about equity and some of the things that you're doing. And that's when we take an opportunity to kind of share around the room the stuff that we're doing in our own classrooms. And it's just a conversation. And I learn a lot from my colleagues. I learn a lot. Like, I'm going to try that next time. Or I'm going to do something else. Or I get feedback on the things that I'm doing. Some things work, some things don't work. So it's a great way to kind of bring that conversation to the table.
Thank you. Powerful. Virginia, what are some immediate actions or changes you think we can implement to better support our students based on what we've learned?
Well, just following on this previous conversation about evaluation of faculty, this is what a big part of the grants that I run actually focuses on, is training faculty. So we're investing in faculty like Eddie and myself to go out and get these trainings from professional organizations like Escala, and with the intent that we bring that back then to the college and we share that with our colleagues. So we're working really aggressively in STEM to try to train faculty how to teach in a manner that best supports our Latinx students. And then through that work, we've identified that evaluation is a place where we have a lot of work to do. And so how do we celebrate successes and how do we encourage improvement without weaponizing mistakes that people make or places where they haven't progressed yet or things like that, right? It's intended to, we have to be supportive and encouraging and make it a welcoming environment for our colleagues to explore. I try to do that by making a lot of mistakes and demonstrating what it looks like to make a mistake and to pick yourself back up and to go back into a classroom and try something different. And I think those of us who've been in the classroom for a few minutes know that each group of students is different and each group of students needs a slightly different approach. And so there's not a one size fits all. Eddie in his classes isn't going to do the same thing that I'm going to do in my classes. You're not going to do the same thing in your classes. So sort of working through, like you said, getting ideas from other people, sharing successes, sharing failures, so that we know what that looks like and how that feels, so that people can try new things and support them and celebrate the small wins. And most of the wins are going to be small. They're going to be tiny. You feel more connected to your student. The letter grade maybe doesn't change, but the student feels more connected to you, right? That's a huge win.
Right.
So we're looking for those kinds of outcomes first and trying to get that as widespread across the institution as possible.
That's good. Thank you. Okay, Ben, based on your understanding of the Latinx students that we have here on campus, what changes or improvements do you think would have the most significant impact on student success?
Well, kind of chiming into what Ginger was saying, we just had Dr. Gina Garcia here and thinking about those liberatory outcomes, right? Thinking about not just, because transfer is our biggest equity gap when it comes to our Latinx students, right? Course completion, graduation rates, but the liberatory outcomes, right? Connecting with our students is so powerful. And I think having come from a classified position and now in these management roles, I've been able to, I'm not in the classroom, but seeing how, the small changes you're talking about, Ginger, the things that you guys are implementing in your courses is powerful, because if every faculty starts doing something small, then it eventually becomes a culture, right? Connecting your readings, right? The material in your stuff to that's relevant, right?
That's relevant.
It's so important, and that is what's going to keep students engaged, and that's what's going to build students' sense of belonging on campus. And so, to me, that's probably the liberatory outcomes are probably some of the most important things that we could work on in every space. But having worked with faculty with this grant, I can see just how powerful it is, and I appreciate you both for doing that, because I know it was not easy to go in and look at your data and look at the outcomes, the success rates, but still do something about that, right? And try to change it. And even if it doesn't work, you try again, right? So I really, really appreciate that you guys are spearheading that work.
It's beautiful. Yeah. So HSIs need collaboration between faculty, administrators, and staff. Ben, how can we foster a greater sense of collaboration on our campus to achieve this goal and success with our Latinx students?
I think it's getting involved, like Eddie was saying, everyone doing their part and getting involved in the work. We've talked about how there's an HSI movement on campus. I truly believe it. I think we all feel it and see it. And I think it's just a matter of getting other faculty involved in the work, make sure that the classified are, number one, offered professional development opportunities, because we don't seem to do that very often.
You're right.
And then having them, be part of that discussion as well. Building this and creating this culture is so important. I think our students also need to see it,
Yes.
because a lot of times that's the work that's happening behind the scenes,
Right.
but we also need to have our students see the work. And so we've talked about murals, we've talked about plants that are throughout campus that are relevant to our students in our community. And so that's really important also, is for them to be able to see the faculty that look like them, that are teaching their courses,
That's
and
right.
the spaces on campus. So that's also very important, is building that sense of community as well.
That's good. That's real good. And those are really doable things.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's like, I don't know who said it, but it's like low-hanging fruit that we can just,
I
easily,
like that.
that's easily attainable. So
Yeah. That's good. Thank you. Okay, Virginia. Based on the Escala conference that we attended, what are some ways we can ensure that our campus culture remains inclusive and supportive of all students, especially from underrepresented communities?
It starts with each one of us. Each of us has to play a role in that, right? So I'm not Latinx, but I draw on my colleagues who are to help me to do better at connecting with my students. I go to trainings. I seek out these opportunities. And then we have to create an environment in our classrooms, in our clubs, in our support services, whatever our role is at the college. We have to create the environment that is welcoming to those students. That's what gets that sense of belonging that Ben was referring to. When you feel welcome, when you feel like you can ask a question, when you feel like you can fail and then succeed later, that's when students can get really bold and explore what their future is going to be. So I think it relies on all of us demanding that of ourselves and demanding it of the ones around us. That's hard to do. It's really hard to do. But when you're in a meeting and you aren't using terminology that includes Latinx students, when we're focusing in on white voices instead of other voices in the room, right? These are common things that happen, and those things decenter the students that we serve primarily. So we have to be really thoughtful about it. So we learned lots of different strategies at the Escala conference for decentering white voices and bringing other voices more to the forefront in conversations. We have to do that in our classrooms. We have to do that in our meetings.
Yes.
We have to do that in our public encounters
You're
here
right.
at the college as
too.
well. And so now that more of us have some of these training some of these skills under our belt, we have to bring that in and expect that in meetings instead of accepting the old way of doing it.
Ooh, that's good. That's rich.
Yeah.
Exactly. The more of us that are trained, when I'm in a meeting and I see you all there,
Yeah.
it encourages me to be more courageous.
Yes.
And to speak the truth.
Yes.
When you're in by yourself,
Yes.
A little more intimidating.
It's hard.
it is hard. So that's why the more we get trained,
Yes.
the stronger we'll become.
Mm-hmm.
We can bring about that change we want on the campus. That's good. Eddie, what role does culture or cultural competency, which you mentioned earlier, play in making RCC a welcoming place for Latinx students, and how can we improve in this area?
I think it's a very important concept to grasp and to understand what cultural competency means. I mean, we celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month, and we're talking about HSIs, and we're using the word Hispanic or Latino, but we have to understand that it's a pan-ethnic term, and that it incorporates a lot of different groups under that umbrella. And so we can't just assume, and I think this is where we need to learn and grow. We can't just assume that because we're in HSIs that we're only talking about our Mexican American students, because there are students that are from El Salvador, there are students that are from Puerto Rico, there are students that are from Ecuador, they're all over, and the cultures are very different. We may share language, we may share some aspects of food and religious beliefs and things of that nature, but we're very diverse. And so having a solid understanding of the various populations that we actually do serve here on campus is important, because we don't want to make an assumption that, the grouping of students that we have are all coming from the same place when they're not, right? And if we're trying to change our pedagogical practices and we're trying to be a little bit more inclusive with or our assignments, or maybe the readings, or the work that we're offering, we want to make sure that we're looking at across the plane, not just one particular group. And I think that's easy for a lot of our faculty, staff, and others to kind of think about in terms of Latino, because we're so close to Mexico, but we can't make that assumption. And so understanding the diversity that we actually have here on campus is extremely important, and learning how to navigate that, learning how to resonate with the population, and learning how to support them individually, from their groups is important for the work.
Well, that's good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, let's look toward the future. Virginia, after attending the conference, what do you see is the next step for RCC continuing to support and elevate our Latinx students?
Well, I think that, as Ben mentioned, there's so many HSIs and emerging HSIs nationwide. And RCC's been an HSI for a long time. We have a long history with this population of students. And as Eddie pointed out, they're really diverse, lots of different groups of people. And we have the opportunity to take the lead. We have 2 NSF HSI awards, one that we've completed, one that is active. We have 2 Department of Education HSI awards, a Title III and a Title V award. We have millions of dollars in federal funds that are meant to elevate HSIs and to serve our students. So we have the opportunity to set what this looks like for other community colleges that don't have as much funding as we do. We can take the lead and show other schools how to find that Hispanic identity, that very diverse, very disparate background, but we can serve all of these populations of students with intentionality. So here at the college, what does that look like? It looks like getting more money. We need to start looking at what are the next projects, what do we want to do, what's the next audacious goal that we're going to have to serve this population of students, and how are we going to then leverage those funds to make that change happen.
I like that. What are the audacious goals?
Yeah. Don't think small, think big. Yes.
Oh, I love it. That's really good. Okay, Eddie, what role can we as educators play in shaping that future?
Oh, that's a big one. I think we have a responsibility here. I think, we're here, we're doing the work. We definitely have a responsibility, not only to change the way that we approach our education and pedagogical practices in the classroom, but I think, as Ginger kind of pointed out, we have an opportunity to be a role model for other campuses. And I think it's really important that we take these millions of dollars that we have access to, and that we're very intentional, and that we're responsible. We do the right things, and of course, we want to institutionalize, these sorts of projects so that they get that longevity, that they get sustainable, that they get to the point where we're not depending on federal dollars, that we're actually doing it out of our own budget because it's the right thing to do. And again, serving as role models for other campuses. I was very proud that when we were at Escala, that one of the things that they had mentioned is that we had done this particular model. Ginger, you could probably help me out with the name of
the IDI.
The IDI.
Yes.
And they shared with us that our campus was the campus that scored the highest.
That's right.
We were like 2 points away from that next step.
But
And
not just of that group that was there. That was the highest that they've
ever.
had.
Ever.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Great.
we have the right mindset.
Yes.
We have the right mindset. We have the right attitude.
Yes.
Now this is doing the right thing.
Yes.
And I think if we can do that, then we can set that example. We can be labeled as a leader out in the industry. And I think that's the responsibility that we have. And that's the future, because if we can set that mark for other campuses, then it goes beyond RCC. Now it's out there in the community with other campuses.
That's beautiful.
Right? It's not just about RCC, it's about education as a whole.
As a whole. Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you. We are about to lose one of our guests. Thank you for being here.
Of course.
Virginia, we have just one more question. We'll finish up with Eddie and Ben. So thank you for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you guys. Sorry.
Ben, what changes do you think we need to make happen? Yeah, I said to make happen, both here at RCC and nationally, to continue thriving and making an impact?
So here at RCC, I believe that we just need to get involved. We need to get our executive team involved, right? All of our faculty on board with the work, and really get people involved in the work that we're doing with the grants, doing their part in their classrooms and their respective spaces that they serve students. I think nationally we need to think about a couple of things. One, it's an election year, and so it's important to think about the political climate and those who are going to be supportive of these grants,
That's good.
who are going to be supportive of funding for HSIs, right? Because whoever you vote for is going to have an impact, and we know that there is, there's an attack on DEI, there's an attack on diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? And so that just naturally means that there's also an attack on HSIs as well, right? And so we got to be mindful of that nationally. I think it's important that we talk to our local legislators as well, because that's really important as well. Is who's in at the state level, the state senate, right? We don't always think about these positions, but they also are really involved in decision making that affect us directly, right? And so that's really important, is that we're really advocating to make sure that we have the right representatives who are going to be supportive to continue these efforts, because we don't always think about that, but it is, and it's getting more competitive now that we have 600 HSIs, as I mentioned, and the pot of money hasn't really grown significantly. So it's not, and as more students of color, specifically Hispanic students, Latino students, enroll, it's going to get even more competitive. So we got to just be mindful of that, especially during an election year.
You're right.
Yeah.
Good insight. I had not thought about that.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for sharing that. Okay, let's wrap it up. I'd like to hear from each of you one final thought on what our viewers should take away from our discussion today. So let's start with you, Ben. What's something you'd like the audience to take away from today's discussion that could support Latinx students?
Just that, like I said, there's a movement. There's an HSI movement. We're really happy, and we just need the campus to be gung-ho about it, right? And there is a way for everyone to get involved. And so, reach out to us, right? Reach out to any of the colleagues that are involved in the Escala work, the trainings, and you'll find your place, because, it's a great place to be in, and we really want to elevate the work. So, absolutely.
Oh, beautiful. What about you, Eddie?
Hey, kind of like Ben said, I think we just got to be mindful of the work that we're doing. We know that that it is work, right? Because it is a lot of work. It's not easy work, but it's rewarding work, right? Yeah. So there's a payoff at the end. So I think just kind of understanding our why and kind of sharing that information with others. There's a reason why we're doing this. It's not, just for recognition, and benefits like that. So we really want to impact our students. And I think The more people we get on board, like Ben said, they'll find their place, they'll find their niche. It's everybody can pitch in, everybody's got a responsibility. But I think just plowing forward and just knowing that it is hard work, but it's rewarding work. Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you both. Listen, if you all would like additional information about what the college is doing, please reach out to anyone that was part of this conversation today. We'll have their names and email addresses at the bottom under the description, because we are here to serve you and make sure you're successful. And faculty, classified professional staff, if you want to get involved or have questions, please reach out to us as well. Thank you both for being here. This was something that was very important to me, and I wanted to be able to share it with the larger audience in our community. So thank you both for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you all for tuning in, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Take care.